So we have met today to have a little bit of a conversation about the reflective conversation that we're all due to have with our assessors. I'm Melissa Joe, and I'm just going to ask everyone to introduce themselves. Kevin, do you want to introduce
Yeah.
yourself?
Hello, I'm Kevin.
Julie?
Hi, I'm Julie.
Hi, I'm Jill, and here's my cat with me because she has to come along.
So we were all on module 2 together. If there's anyone watching that wasn't on module 2, and we've just been having a little prep conversation about how our work on this homework for module 2 has been informing our lives, and how our lives have been informing our work, and how the two things are connected, which is really kind of strange and interesting and exciting. So I'm just going to share my screen and open up the document that I've prepared for these notes. And this is what we're asked to do. So I think it's four pages, yeah, 4 different sections that I've split it into. So one of the things we're supposed to reflect on is about stress and the ways in which stress could be visible and can be managed. So I don't know, we haven't had a discussion about how we're going to do this, but I mean, one of the things we could do is just maybe have a brief look at and remind ourselves of the sessions, so session 11 and 12. Just look at the things that were there, just to jog our memories, and then maybe go around briefly reflecting on a situation. Just to kind of get our processes right. So that's number 1. The second one is so the learning outcome is the significance of intimacy and touch in personal relationships at the end of life. So it's developing the awareness, sensitivity, and understanding of the diverse range of needs for intimacy and privacy, how intimacy needs can be met, and in person-centered end of life doing practice reflects on how you could manage, or I've got that twice, your own responses to expressions of intimacy between others. So that's this one. And then the third one, sorry, I'm just looking for the page break, but can't immediately see it. So the third one is session 13, the use of imagery exercises in supporting people at ends of life. Explain the purpose of imagery and how these exercises can support people at end of life, reflecting on examples from our own experience of being recipient and facilitator, discussing the effectiveness of imagery exercises. And I don't know what they mean by range, but I think it's understanding what effectiveness refers to and how it's appropriate, the pace. Oh yeah, okay. So it's about pace of delivery, tone, and quality. That's something that we could look at and think about. And then this is the last one. Outcome 5 and 6, the appropriate use of reminiscence to connect with and support end-of-life clients. So describe empathic listening skills in the context of reminiscence, real-life examples, and reflect on the significance of including an end-of-life client through personal reminiscence. So I guess it's that's your own reminiscence and how you would include them. So there we are. Those are the 4. That seems manageable, doesn't it, when you look at it like this?
Yeah.
Yes.
So bad.
I sort of did the same thing, Melissa Joe, in that I wrote out the basic points. Like if you go to the first one, reflect on a situation where you've supported others who are facing a stressful situation.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of imagining that the person we speak to is going to go, can you reflect on a situation where you've been supported? You know, and we sort of have to give an example of that.
Yeah.
You know, using our maybe, tone and all of that stuff. So I think, like you say, when she put it down like this, it doesn't seem as huge. It seems like,
exactly.
yeah, some little chunks.
You know what I'm thinking? Because there's 4 of us and there are 4 learning outcomes, why don't we divide them up between us. Each of us pick one, and then we can do our thinking maybe on tape, and
Yeah.
then on tape. I'm so 20th century. Um, and then we could make notes. Well, I don't mind making notes for other people and then share those. And then because otherwise it'll be too long and unwieldy, this meeting. How does that sound? That a good idea?
What?
Good
So
idea.
we
So
do.
if we each pick one of these,
Mm.
maybe do our thinking now in this meeting. The other people can be secretary, take notes for that person, but then you'll have the recording anyway. And then we'll divide it up like that. How does that sound? Or is there another way anyone would like to do it? Should
I
we have
think
a
that's
bit of,
great. MJ, I just wonder if when the one person has done their thing, there might be another couple of comments from the others before we move on.
brilliant?
Reflective comments, just to help that
Mm.
person think as well. And
Excellent.
those same things might come up
Yes.
from other people watching the recording.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so we've got an hour now because we've had our half-hour prep. So if we'd basically spend 15 minutes on each task. How about that? How perfect is this?
It might be too long in the
I'm
sense that
thinking the
we
same, Jill. I'm not sure.
I don't
We
think
go
it's
to
gonna
bed at
be
9
long. You know
o'clock.
why? Because we're going to start.
me too.
We're going to start by looking at the documents that we've been provided, our course documents. We're just going to briefly look over those for each outcome.
Okay.
Okay. So, can I bag the imagery? Is anyone okay with? Is everyone all right with that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Who
Mhm.
would like to do the use of reminiscence?
I'm easy. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Kevin, which one do you want? And Jill. So intimacy or stress?
I quite like the idea of stress.
Cool.
Okay. I'll do intimacy because I have got a example, which I
Perfect.
think I might have shared on the course anyway, but it's the one
Okay,
that came to mind.
great. That's good. Okay, shall we start with stress then?
Mhm.
There's some.
Yeah. So just going back to our course documents here. Sorry, I forgot what stress was. It is sessions 11 and 12. Okay. So here we are, session 11 was body outline. That's when we had to draw the outline.
Yeah.
Stress responses. I don't know what this PowerPoint is. I can look if you like. A daily self-healing using the havening technique. And then session 12 was mindful touch guidelines. No, that's intimacy. No, this is touch. This is touch and intimacy. So I'm guessing stress was mostly 11 then. Is that right?
I think the stress ones, were they earlier? Oh
It
gosh. I don't know.
says sessions 11 and 12.
Yeah, it's 11. Most water came in 11.
Okay.
11. Okay. Because I think it's not 12, isn't it? So let's quickly look at this PowerPoint and see what that is, shall we? Okay, complementing creative approaches, ways in stress can be managed, and the use of relaxation techniques to support the end of life doula role. Types of stress. We're so familiar with this because we've done our homework.
Do you think we're expected to cover areas we've already covered in the tasks that we've written, or are they expecting new reflections or new? I'm not quite sure.
I think it could be either, really, Kevin. I think it may be
Yes, I
something
mean,
that you've written about. You could go over that, but could be something completely different. It's just I think it's trying to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Reflect on a situation where you've supported others who are facing stressful situations. It's like, you could probably think of any example from your recent experience with your patient, Kevin, that was probably a number of moments that were stressful, and you know, you supported someone in that.
My sense is that they want us to personalize it.
Yeah.
They want us to talk about when we've done this ourselves, and you know, and how we've applied the knowledge. That's my guess.
Okay.
So, Kevin, do you want to have a little moment of identifying? It doesn't have to be the one you use in the actual conversation, obviously. I'm going to stop sharing when you're ready. Tell me when. Have you got this somewhere that you can?
Well, no, I mean, I've done some screen grabs, but I've got nothing to refer to. I'm going to get my notes from the kitchen because
Sure.
I've got hard copies of this, so
Oh, brilliant, brilliant.
that's going to help me.
Yeah. But while he does that, so this could be theoretical if you haven't done it yet. But I'm pretty sure all of us have helped people and supported people who are facing stressful situations. I mean, we've all got kids. So we've all, supported our children through stressful situations.
I think it's really useful to trust, for our own conversation with the tutor to, really focus on a couple of situations and think them through in terms of what you was saying, MJ. How you did it, what was going on, like tone and all those other things, and empathic listening. Is that what it's all about, really? It's really, they want to know how you would cope with that. And it's useful if you just have a think and imagine what that situation was and how you did it.
Yeah.
This way of starting.
I guess something I'm learning is when somebody else apart from myself is under stress and going through a difficult time, I'm learning not to take that on, not to carry that stress for them, which is a new experience for me because I've always wanted to lighten people's load, or I've often been a magnet for people's stress, people stressing, and knowing a boundary, and that's new. And when I had to come up here to Scotland, I had to say goodbye to my patient, and she was terribly upset. And I had to tell her in stages, in weekly intervals, rather than it being an outright shock. And that holding a boundary for myself was new, and it's very sensitive. It's very sensitive with someone at the end of life because they know they're on borrowed time, limited time, and every day matters. Every conversation is important for them in retrospect. And I had to look them in the eye and hold focus and remind them, that the fear that they were having about their end of life and about abandonment from their families or being a burden for this person. What am I trying to say? There is a million reasons why we can hold on to stress and not let go, and what I had to remind her was just to let go and just let go. And when it came to the death process, which is what she was particularly worried about, I had to remind her from something I'd learned on the course only a few weeks before that, about being programmed to die and programmed to let go. And when we're born, we're programmed to breathe. And when we die, we're programmed to stop breathing. And it's nature. And she was particularly a control freak kind of person, and always had to be in charge. And to remind someone that, double my age, that we can't be in charge. There are times when we can't be in charge. And it worked, actually. That kind of quite a frank kind of conversation, very intimate. And I held her face, I cut her face like that because she was crying. And it worked. It worked because she relaxed, and then the other carers came in. So we had that brief exchange where I held her, in conversation, but also cradling her face. So I did carry on seeing her and phoning her twice a week, and I saw her on the bank holiday 2 weeks later. But she calmed down. She became a new person, and she wasn't hanging on, to her continence, and her health and her ability to get in her wheelchair. She let go, and that responsibility of hanging on, she became very tranquil actually after that. And I think that's probably why she ended up, being able to die in the end. So I don't know if I've answered the question.
Yeah. Well, let me just kind of reflect what you just said. So you've mentioned, you've reflected on a situation where you supported someone who was in a stressful situation. The stressful situation was
Yeah.
you not being able to continue to visit her physically because you were having to leave for work.
Yeah.
You noted how you supported her by telling her in stages.
Mm.
You realized that you had to be very sensitive in that conversation. You knew that you needed to look her in the eyes, remind her that about that it was just fear, and what those fears were, and just so she could have some distance from it. And remind her to let go of control. And you gave her a way to die. You talked to her about, the death process and something that she could do, which is about just allowing it to happen, which she then was able to do. You also you had a very open and frank conversation with a way of supporting her, and you held her physically very well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did answer the question.
You did answer the question. How about that?
And it was stressful. It was difficult. It had been building up for weeks, and
It must have been really hard to have
yeah,
that conversation.
Yeah, well, it became automatic. I mean, the three of you are mothers. You've given birth. You know what it's like when you're more than anyone, more than a man could. But sorry, right. Are we back in the room? The phone rang on my laptop. What I'm trying to say is, um, when you give birth, your body takes over, and you have to trust your body. Actually, I think that's what you do, and that was a thing that I think helped her as well. Um,
I love the conversation that you had around birth and death with her, in terms of we're programmed to do that, and your body will know what to do. I think that really probably helped and allowed her to let go. I think
yeah,
that's magnificent what you did there,
yeah.
Kevin.
I must say, I felt a bit guilt. I felt some guilt because
Mhm.
she did die, 2
Mm.
weeks later, and I don't think she would have. And I
But
couldn't help.
suddenly you're not God, Kevin. I mean,
No.
it was the
I
it was
did
the
make
the
it.
process. You know, you trusted in the process. I mean, I thought that was beautiful too.
I thought it was
You
lovely.
know, don't think you should beat yourself up in any way. I mean,
No.
you know, if that led her to a tranquil end, you know.
Mm,
What a
So
gift.
what if she'd lived another week if you didn't say that? So I mean, that's
mm,
beautiful.
mm.
I,
Yeah, it is. I've
Mm.
learned a lot from her in this module, especially, but in the whole um, training and process, and yeah, yeah,
The other two things that struck me was that you shared about your own stress. Right. The question doesn't ask that, but I think that's very real,
Mm.
because it asks about others' stress. So, um,
mm,
and that you actually were demonstrating a lot of the values, the doula values, like trusting the process, holding space, holding
mm,
information, the boundariedness. You spoke of all those things, and that they're all our doula values, and I think
mm,
that's worth
mm,
them. Well, they should note that, but I mean, I'm noting it for us. It's really
mm.
about our values in that space, isn't it?
And after this is over, I'm going to take notes from this meeting. This is it's working, isn't it? I can see
yeah,
how helpful it is.
yeah.
Actually.
I
Yeah.
think you're right, Jill. Seeing how it affects people, yourself as well, is really crucial. And seeing, it is also our own stress that's we've got to be aware of. And I noticed that you mentioned feeling guilt, which can be stressful, Kevin, to feel guilt. So
Mm.
can I just ask you what you did with the guilt, and did you consciously address it in any way?
Well, I acknowledged it, and I spoke about it, and the more I spoke about it, obviously, the more I realised that it's man-made. It's not a productive emotion or feeling, and uh, yeah. So, and I wrote about it as well. I think in the task, and reflected on it in the journal. Um, and I don't have that now. I don't have this guilt. I'm not carrying it, but I acknowledged it, and I did have it. A sense of guilt. Um, um, it's difficult to shake off guilt. It's a funny thing, especially yeah, especially when you've been brought up Catholic, because they rely on guilt and shame and um, yeah.
That's interesting. Good to research some tools for addressing guilt. I I'm going, oh, that's the 15 minutes. Just very briefly, I'm going to share with you the visualization that I've been using, that I developed, that and copyrighted, because I think it really works, and I'm going to ask you if you want to try it for that.
Mm.
Okay, nice one. All right, next one is session 12, the significance of intimacy and touch in personal relationships at the end of life. I'm just going to share screen again so we can do this together. Okay, so demonstrate the awareness, sensitivity, and an understanding of the diverse range of needs for intimacy and or privacy, how intimacy needs can be met as a priority in person-centered end of life through the practice. Reflect on how you could manage your own responses to expressions of intimacy between others. So session 12, our resources are mindful touch guidelines. Okay, that's a useful little graph. What are you aiming to do? So just something you could sort of use there. Intimacy at the end of life reflection. What are my initial reactions when thinking about people wanting to explore issues of intimacy and sexuality at the end of life? So that's just getting ourselves really comfortable around these issues. How might the personal, professional, cultural beliefs I hold influence me in supporting those at end of life? Useful exercise to do. Touching the dying. This was, is this that gorgeous? I don't know why it's called an email. Not coming up. I've just read it actually. It's beautiful. About this nurse in a very busy care ward, just going in and checking in on her dying patient, noticing that
Oh, I remember reading that. Yeah.
really
Yeah,
beautiful.
it is.
That one.
Mm.
Intimacy case scenarios. Oh, we did these, didn't we?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
remember those. What dying people want in touch. So the significance of human contact, why it's important, how we experience touch through our skin, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to reread these actually. This is very useful. Terminally ill people also need to be touched. That's what I was lecturing everyone about in the dementia care, actually. It was really useful to have just done that presentation.
Mm.
Okay, Julie, do you want to go through any more of these, or are you?
No, I think I just sort of look at the question. I might be completely oversimplifying it, quite possibly, but I would just so around demonstrate the awareness, sensitivity, and understanding that there's a diverse range of needs for intimacy and privacy, and how intimacy needs can be met as a priority in person-centered practice. So I know when we were on the course, I kind of mentioned a young couple in our unit who always get on the bed together and cuddle.
Yeah.
And just how lovely that is. It's not kind of, I guess, what I expect when I walk into a room, or so it's sort of, I remember the first time walking in and then just seeing them cuddled up and just, for a moment taking that in, I think, and actually then just thinking how beautiful that was. And then I guess as a team, how we sort of very sensitively go in, and sometimes he would be asleep, and she'd be cuddled up round him, and we might just have to go in to do something very, small or little, but we'd all just be creeping in very quietly. We'd still get the eye contact, still get the permission to come in to do what was needing to be done, whether it to be change a, bag over, or do something, flush something, but just knowing that whenever you go into their room, they are making, the most of all the moments they've got, and actually just being really sensitive to that. And that felt like, for me, a need to be quiet, a need to still get, permission to do things and still inform him and her what I was doing. So it felt very much like just a quietening down of how I would be. And I guess every room you go into is different and every person is different. So you are almost like a different practitioner with every person you see and every interaction you have. But that it was such a lovely thing to see. And it isn't something that happens very much in a hospital bed, but it was really lovely. So I think that there are diverse needs. And they obviously felt that they just needed to touch each other, hold each other a lot. And I'm really pleased that we enabled that to happen and that they felt comfortable enough to do that with us coming in and out. But we just had to be just quiet and respectful, and positive about it, I think, and smile and be happy that they were able to be that comfortable. So that was really lovely. I don't know if that is answering the question, but I do think it is a priority, I guess, in person-centered care, to allow people to be what they want to be and to enable that person to be as comfortable as possible with whoever, they want to be close to. So yeah, I guess that's a simple example.
That's great.
Do
Great.
you think that's the sort of thing?
I absolutely do. I mean,
First range of
you've
needs.
also told us exactly what your thinking process was about it, or maybe it was instinctive, but it's still you still kind of check this. So you're recognizing the diverse range of needs for intimacy,
Mm,
recognizing their needs as a young couple and as a couple,
mm,
um, and how they can get their needs met, and how that is a priority is really important. So that's you've answered the question. So
I think it also goes back to a little bit what, Kevin was saying as well. Just, I think in that answer as well as that as an example, but I think, your example of when you actually held your client's face,
Mm.
that is really intimate.
Mm.
And eye contact can be incredibly intimate. It can be quite challenging, I think, as well, that sort of close eye contact. But how lovely, because as we've said, and you've said as well, Melissa Joe, earlier, around people not being touched when they are really sick, and maybe, don't look their best, but it is really like looking into the eyes of the person, because you always see the beauty in the soul and the eyes of the person, and you connect to that.
mhm.
uh, you know everybody's beautiful, really. But I think that was a lovely example, because you could use that example, that you gave, Kevin, as well, in terms of that intimate touch is
Mm.
profound, really, and it
Mm.
can calm somebody, it can hold somebody.
Mm.
That was a good example too, just on reflection now, now we're talking about it.
But also, you're by facilitating the couple,
Mm,
you're 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 collaborating in that intimacy. So it
mm.
becomes not just their intimacy; it's yours and the staff
Yes.
with you. Um, so it becomes a bigger intimacy if there's such a thing. And
Yeah, I like that, Kevin. I mean, when you said collaborating with the intimacy, I've actually just written it down,
mm,
because you feel very much part of that intimate moment. You feel
yeah,
privileged to be part of that, like, you're allowed into that space.
mm,
It's
yeah,
yeah, thank you.
And
mm,
I'm just going to
Helpful.
write you just some words you've said. So you said you made eye contact with them. That's
Mm.
a way of getting permission. you said that you informed them what you were doing and why you were there, and that you were quiet and respectful around them.
Mm.
And I think those are really important points.
Mm.
And just the fact that you were comfortable with it meant that they were comfortable, as well.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Mhm.
And how skillful you are at gauging the room. You read the room, you know the patient, you know what might be right for one patient as opposed to the one in the next room.
Mm.
And that's proper skill to slot into each scenario, um, probably quite quickly, in a short space of time.
Yeah, I think that's possibly come over years, but it has also come through making the odd mistake along the way. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like sort of walking into a room and still going and imagining something, and then you walk in, you realize, and you see the look on somebody's face and think, they're not in a good place today, actually. Me going in, hi, isn't, and I've had to very quickly turn it around. And I know when I've made those mistakes, I don't know, but yeah, you kind of, so then it's always about being like every moment being present and not anticipating anything, I think, each time. Yeah, reading the room. I know I talk about that a lot, but it's a really important thing, reading a room. Mm.
Mm.
I
Okay.
guess I guess it's about being in the now, isn't it? Being in the present. It forces you to be present
Mm.
in the room that you're
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's almost the gift you get back sometimes, I think,
Mm,
because you honestly don't know what's going to happen next so much, and you just got to be really present,
mm,
not assume anything, not think about what you're going to say next, just
mm,
react to what is happening. But it does, that in itself is quite a gift because it makes you be present.
mm,
And that's, where you were, Kevin, in that moment with your client,
mm,
very present and actually realizing, right, okay, now this is what I think I need to say next in response to what was happening in front of you.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Hmm. Right. I don't,
You have anything to add, or
It's brilliant, quite brilliant, Julie. I've got you, I'm listed to be my end of life doula. Well, all of you really, but I mean,
don't.
yes.
Mm,
Oh,
good?
thanks, Jill. So yeah, I also there is that reflect on how you manage your own responses. Yeah, so I think I did answer that bit as well, didn't I?
Yeah,
mm.
you did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you did. That's
Right.
perfect. Good. We've got 1 minute 30, so we can go to the next one.
Mhm.
So the next one is imagery, I believe. So explain the purpose of imagery exercises and how they can support people at the end of life. Reflecting on examples from your own experience of being recipient and facilitator, discuss the effectiveness of exercises uh, and the use of imagery, exercise, and supporting people at the end of life is the learning one. So I'm like, okay, this one was made for me. So the resources, oh, we've got session 13. Resources that we had to support us, evaluating imagery as a client. Those were the two that we did, didn't we? We delivered one, and we were recipients. I think we chose. Um, and there were two very different ones. One that was quite complex and a lot of imagery going on, and one that was a bit more simple. Am I right? So there was a guided
Mm.
meditation,
Yes.
on
Yeah.
letting float.
Oh.
And this was the Stephen Levine one, which I found incredibly complex.
Yeah.
A lot of information there, not much sort of, you were guided, you were micromanaged. I felt. And then there was what was the other one?
There was a journey, wasn't there? I think there was a journey.
There was another one, sorry.
Going to the light, or being surrounded by loved ones.
Letting go of attachments and saying goodbye and letting
Yeah.
go into the spiritual world. That one.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And that felt, she's very wordy now I look at it. I don't think it felt quite so wordy at the time.
Mm.
Interesting. Okay, and then historical uses of imagery. Okay, so this is shamanism, Ayurvedic medicine, Tibetan medicine, Chinese medicine. That's quite interesting. I haven't read this. I need to go back and read that because I don't remember this.
Didn't we do it? We all read it round a circle, and she had
Really given a bit.
she had a PowerPoint with pictures on, and we all read it. Wasn't it like that?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Something like that.
Gosh, you've got great memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think was very. I think it was better to go back and read it really.
Yeah, I need to go back and read that. What's this, a film on image work? No, it's
we watched that. We definitely watched that. But
mhm.
it doesn't say an awful lot.
It didn't, no. But it talks about the power of imagery. Yeah, I'm gonna refresh my mind on all of these things. It's a wonderful thing. We have all these great resources. So the two experiences I'm going to share, sorry, I'm just changing the view back to a gallery view. I don't know what I'm doing. Not gone back to a gallery view. I don't know what they will be able to see on the recording because I can see Kevin. So never mind. I don't know why it's not allowing, not seeing me, but it doesn't really matter. So here we are, gallery view. That's better. So my experience, which I think I shared with Julie, I don't know if Kevin or Jill, if you did my imagery, that visualization that I sent to the group. Did either of you do it?
Yes. Oh yeah, I sent it.
Yes,
Some
yes.
feedback to you.
You did, yeah. Because sorry, this hasn't started. There we are. Yeah, so yeah, you gave me really useful feedback, actually, both of you. Thank you very much. This was a visualization that I had prepared originally, following my friend's request. So my friend who was I guess agnostic, I would suppose. I don't know if his parents were religious. He was Japanese American. But he didn't really have any religious beliefs or views about what happened after death. And I don't have religious views about what happens after death, but I'm convinced, and I suppose I have a spiritual belief that we are definitely welcomed by our loved ones who go beyond. So Kevin had felt, I suppose, a need to know what happened. Not to know because he knew I didn't know because I'm not dead, but he wanted to imagine what happened. So I didn't actually prepare this visualization before he died, but I did tell him what I believe. But in the visualization that I prepared, I imagined him being able to visit spirit before he died. So the imagery that I used was about a kind of ravine over which he could travel as an eagle with an eagle guide. And that's how I described this this journey. And what was behind it for me was preparing for that flight, but also wanting to create a vision of being welcomed by loved ones. And I was talking about this actually in the presentation I delivered the other day about end of life visions. I'm very interested in end of life visions, or sometimes they're called death visions, which a lot of people are looking into and researching. And it does seem that they are very, very common in hospice situations and end of life situations, that people do see their loved ones and they do get guided to death. Certainly my father, before, when he was dying in hospital, before actually we managed to bring him home and give him another 6 months of life, but he was definitely dying, even though he didn't at that moment die. But he saw an empty house, and he saw his friend, a school friend that he hadn't seen since he was a school child. So it wasn't someone he was particularly close to, but it was someone who had probably already gone beyond. And this friend just guided him round this house. And on the walls of the house, this empty house, were all of my father's paintings. And it was a moment of absolute, wow, look what I've done. It was his life's work, literally his life's work. It was very, very beautiful image for him to have in a dream, which he thought it was a dream. So I'm collecting this information, and I think I'm going to use it with the imagery that I use about reflection on somebody's life, and their achievements. I think that's something that we can use imagery to allow people to enjoy and see as well, and recognize, because often regrets come more easily to the surface. So it's really important to have this reflection of the amazing things you have achieved in your lives. Yeah, so going back to that meditation that I prepared, the feedback that I got, and I think there were 3 of you who gave me feedback, and it's very, very useful. I think I needed to spend more time on the visioning of what that welcome was like, and to really, really in detail. I don't have to I was worried about being too precise, because I didn't want to tell people what to expect or think. I wanted that to be open, but I think it's what I can convey is the feelings that I want people to be aware of. And then you can set that tone. Yeah, so I want to spend more time on the other side in the next time I do it. The question is asking me to talk about how I also experience imagery. So I'm going to use a different example to answer that, because I've created, I think I said earlier, I've created a visualization that really works for me. And it's using the principles of house cleaning. But it's for those moments when you're awake in the night and you've got all these things that are stressing and worrying you. And it's about taking them out one by one and in a pool of light. That's in a nutshell what the visualization does. And it's been really working for me. I've been taking them out in the middle of the night and just going, okay, so what is that that's making you feel that? House cleaning, and then I can just drift off to sleep afterwards, because it's been and so now that I know I've done my own visualization, I feel like much more confident in doing it with other people, because I know it works and I know what works about it. So yeah, I'll share that one with you all too. So yes.
Yeah. So I think Yeah, you did kind of cover the purpose of the exercise that you did. And I think it was good to explain it in the context of your friend Kevin, who was struggling with that particular aspect of believing in or not in anything post-death. So I think in that context, the purpose was good. The purpose was pretty clear. So you were supporting him to kind of understand, I guess, maybe open to the idea that there might be something, but maybe that hopefully that would reduce fear. So I liked that you could really explain the purpose there. I think you did answer that.
Great.
Mm.
I guess the point is to change the state of the person after, for the better, so there's
Yeah.
which you did. I mean, how was Kevin after? How was his attitude after the imagery that you used? How did it show itself?
He was comforted, I think he was curious, and open-minded still. It wasn't like he knew that that's what was going to happen, but I think he felt comforted by that idea.
Yeah.
I didn't want to placate, I did it's like this, idea of heaven. I didn't want to go, it's all going to be fine because,
Mm.
heaven. But at the same time, I wanted to give him positive.
Mm.
Yeah.
Curious, MJ, how now you've explored this, in terms of the, what is it called, the effectiveness versus the appropriateness of the exercise for the given context. So, Kevin asked for some support. I just wondered how you might think or consider using some sort of imagery exercise on somebody who you don't know very well. How will you get to that point of knowing this is going to be effective in this given situation? That's the bit I'm struggling with. That's why I'm asking you, because like, how do we know if it isn't going to cause some pain or harm?
Yeah,
Me,
I think, Jill, I suppose when I first heard your visualization, MJ, I think that was probably my concern, was could there be some harm
yeah, because
from
you said
this?
you found it shocking, didn't you?
Yeah, I sort of, when you started, I was like, oh my God. Honestly, that's what I was like. I was like, I don't think I'd go there with my patients. And maybe that's me not being brave enough, but I do use some visualizations, around, pain or relaxation techniques, but nothing quite so I don't know, vivid or quite so, I don't know, potentially contentious, I think. And I did say I was shocked initially, because I was like, wow, this is pretty brave to go to actually somebody who is actually dying and then actually to take them through a death process on a visualization. Yeah, I'm not sure I would go there, but I understand why you did it. So it's
yeah.
been helpful today to understand that.
So one of our
Okay.
colleagues whose husband is actively dying said they wanted to try it, and
Mm,
they found it really good. They also said they
mm,
wanted to spend more time the other end. Um,
that's nice.
and then they went back. The husband tried it again when he was feeling stressed later that night, and so found it really, really soothing. So that was nice to know. But I think, it has to be an active choice, really, of the person. You
Yeah.
can't impose it on
And,
somebody.
and that could be me, reflecting on my own, I don't know, expectations or my own protection of people or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, Yeah, so I accept, you know, what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. But if I didn't really know a person, I think, like I would, like Julia was saying, probably start with some sort of simple relaxation thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, get some sort of feedback about how that goes, and then almost lead into something more elaborate, if that's the right, if that's the right thing. I just have no experience really of facilitating this. Loads of experience of having it happen to me, because
Yeah.
I'm in a group where we do visualizations every week. But
Ah,
that's on a spiritual path. So that's something quite removed really from
yeah.
doing this sort of work with somebody that's dying.
Mm.
I'm just going to pause the recording briefly.
Are we run out?
So just going back to the sharing, so the learning outcome is, where's it gone? Describe empathic listening skills in the context of a reminiscence session. So this is about the appropriate use of reminiscence to connect with and support end-of-life clients. Reflecting on significance, including end-of-life clients through personal reminiscence. So that's if I'm guessing that means sort of leading it rather than expecting them to reminisce. I don't know. And the sessions are 15 and 16. So the learning points on reminiscence, benefits of reminiscence. Oh, the come from exercise was lovely. That poetry we had to do.
Yeah.
That was really lovely, wasn't it?
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
So who they are basically, and the benefits of reminiscence. Sorry, the benefits of reminiscing. So
Is this where there was that video of the ballerina with dementia?
Oh,
that's lovely, isn't it?
I,
Yeah.
it was.
I saw that at work. I had to go out of the room for about 20 minutes. It was incredibly powerful. And she just muscle memory, she went into the motion. Then they intercut it with the
Ballerina doing the work, yeah.
she was younger, and
Mm.
yeah, it was that's reminiscence. that was just there's something about reminiscence which brings it back into the present, brings the past back into the present, like it's one thing, and that's a lovely thing to do.
Yeah.
I think.
So yes, form of
Okay.
virtual reality. Okay, so I stop sharing and you take it away. Oh, I had stopped sharing. Was I sharing that? I didn't
You
share
did
that.
share and then you turned it off. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh, did we share it?
No, I
Oh,
think
well, people
I
can
didn't
have a
share,
look.
let me just share which was these sessions 15 and 16. But people know what to do. They know how to find this on their
Yeah,
VC.
they
So
do.
it's a session with the ballerina, and then the
Oh, there was a lot, wasn't there?
yeah.
There's all those cards.
Oh, and the music that we all our desert island islanders.
Mm.
That was really lovely.
Lovely.
Okay, well, my examples don't have music or any of those things, but I'm sure those could come into lots of other people's examples. So my first example is looking after my dying father, and he was very agitated and stressed, and he didn't want to die, and there was a lot of anxiety. And one of the things that really helped him was us sharing stories or when we were younger, because it seemed to give him some focus, I think, you know, some way of being in the moment, but then in the memory of the moment. And he did so much with us, my father, when we were little and young. Took us on so many trips and took us out at the weekend, walking in the hills and things like that. And it was my sisters and I, so there were three of us, so we had different memories of the same occasion, and it became very rich and just gave him a real sense of okayness of things, and that's what he needed, because he didn't feel okay, and it was clear he was much calmer, and the whole thing that it builds like this lovely web of the tranquility around knowing that your family were okay, because that meant so much to him. So, you know, what's really important to our clients, for him, it was really important that we, as he was leaving, because obviously he knew he was dying, had stage 4 cancer, and he was a doctor, so he knew what everything was happening. He come from a dysfunctional family himself, and they'd all fallen out, you know, apart from him and one brother. The rest of them never spoke to each other again. And so knowing that we were still very close and shared things, and all those sort of moments really helped. So empathic skills. It's creating this space, isn't it? It's creating the calm. It's being able to make the eye contact, you know, reflect back with smiles or laughter. Sometimes just a word of encouragement. When my father could still speak, he could share too. But we continued our reminiscing even when he couldn't speak, because he could, I think we all thought he could still hear. So it enabled a continuation of that process. Did I answer the question yet? In terms of examples, I was the only one that was around to support my uncle when he was dying. He had dementia and he was in a care home, but I was the only one that could get there. But even though he had dementia, he always knew right until he died who I was. And we always had this little ritual where, to begin with, he could name all the family members. And it was like from his dementia point of view, it was his peg. Like, so it created again for him this sort of comforting security, gave him, you know, I don't think he really knew where he was, and it was all a bit uncertain being in this home. And like the naming of the family, we always got to a point though, which was difficult, where I always asked about my father, and was my father still alive? His brother, his beloved brother, and of course he isn't. He died before my uncle, and I had to say to him, because it didn't feel right to lie or not be true about it. So I said, no, he's not with us. He's gone, you know, he's died now. And my uncle, even every time he cried again, it was hard, but it was his peg, it was his reality. But bit by bit over the months, before he died, he couldn't remember the names anymore, but he wanted me to say who everybody was. And it was the same story every time. It was the same process, but it was what was important to him. And it gave a lot of peace to him, I think. What haven't I said? What haven't I said, folks?
I think that was beautiful, Jill. I think the way you express things, sometimes you have such a good phraseology, or I don't know what the word is, but you can, the way you construct your words. I can see Kevin nodding there, but I was like, wow, it was just beautiful, really lovely. You know, to say that it was a ritual almost that provided comfort. You said something about it being a rich experience. I just thought, yeah, the words that you used were beautiful.
I
Really got across the whole,
Can I answer?
across the empathic listening. Yeah,
Like
really
what you
did.
said about naming people, because it's not something you'd think of doing. But that's really interesting that you could tell that that was what he wanted you to do, and so you do it, and you sort of almost like naming the tribe. That's just the love.
Mm.
That's a form of reminiscence.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
like framing, isn't it? It's like you're the peg or the
Mm.
names of the family. It's like the framework, his framework, how he identifies in relation to that person and that person and that person. It's very
Yeah.
important, and it brings it back to life by uh,
Yeah.
Mm.
um, it's rebuilding that structure, especially with dementia where everything dissolves. Um, you want something, you know.
Yeah. And I got that sense that that the disintegration bothered him a lot to
Mm,
begin with. Probably did it. Well, I don't know because I don't know what goes on by the time they've lost so much. I'm not a dementia specialist or health worker, but by that time we'd built up that rapport sufficiently that we could do that. That model of the family that really was important to it. Yeah.
a lot of the thinking nowadays is not to tell people when people have died,
Is
because
it?
they go through that grief again and again.
But I don't know. I felt really uncomfortable.
Mm.
Anyway, that was what I did at the time. I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
I don't know any
So
different,
well,
so
I'm just saying, I wonder, maybe it's a positive thing to allow someone that opportunity to grieve. I don't know. I don't know.
Tell you what, that would be a really good reflective discussion for us all to have about that.
Really would.
How we feel about it. Because I admire your bravery, saying it every time, Jill. That does take enormous courage to keep having to bring that up for yourself as much as your uncle.
sure. Oh, but it opened a little space, and then we said a few words, or I said a few words about, my father and their connection and the love they had for each other. I don't know what it was doing, but I had to let it flow like Kevin did in the moment. And so I never did lie. I always did say, he's died now. But didn't we do this and love that and that sort of thing.
I love that you
But
kept
not
speaking to your, sorry.
go on, sorry.
I love that you kept speaking to your father and reminiscing when he couldn't speak himself. That's really lovely, because a lot of people forget to continue to involve somebody if they're non-verbal.
Mm. I found that a really hard space when he became non-verbal. So in a way it was for us to cope with that too. So I don't know, that's not part of an answer, is it? But maybe it is, because you're maintaining your own your own ground in a very difficult space, obviously with your father dying, but even with anybody dying, as you found, Kevin, you need to keep your own ground in some way. And that helped us keep our own ground in the process of his dying. Yeah. But I think it takes some knowing. It's not somebody who you don't know. It's much more about, opening up open questions, opening up and finding something and encouraging family reminiscence, I guess, with, his family. But if any of his family or her family are around a dying client, then you can really facilitate, I think, reminiscence.
And that gives the context to the loss as well that they're going through. You know, it's part of processing anticipatory grief and
Mm.
um, and then full blown grief when it does hit. At funerals, like my client's funeral, everyone's full of reminiscence. Everyone tells stories
True.
of their perspective of that person.
Yes.
And the good thing about being a doula, or in my case, a volunteer, a hospice volunteer, you have a completely different perspective than the rest of the family. So I was able to tell stories that they'd never heard, nice ones, that, and they'd say, she never talked about the war. She never talked about that part of history, so it was yeah. You give a framework. You give a framework for that person. Great.
In the social club that I run, I've got lots of people with dementia and lots of people, who are in their 80s. And some of them have lived through the most incredible parts of history that I just feel so lucky and privileged to be hearing from.
Yeah.
Lots of Windrush stories. Woman that I was talking to was telling me that her parents used to work on the canals. They lived on a canal boat and they took coals to Birmingham, from the under up the Grand Canal route. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
an incredible piece of history.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an honour, isn't it? My one, I keep talking about her, but she was born in Holland in 1930, so she went through Nazi occupation. She remembers Jews having to wear the stars and being herded onto trains and taken away. And she remembers that as a girl, yet she never talked about it. And that's first. That's first, whatever the
First-hand
First-hand
primary
accounts.
yeah.
First-hand accounts.
data.
I've never heard that thing before. Yeah.
Well, it's
Yes.
folks. We've been.
That's my bedtime, Melissa Jo.
Is it?
This.
I think we did a great job there, everybody. What do you think?
No, I think it has
Great
been
job.
really helpful just to kind of actually go, do you know what? It's almost like you just need to identify a few examples before you have the conversation. And then I do think just do it in the present moment. Don't overthink it, probably.
Yeah.
Trust the process. Yes.
Yeah.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
Wait, you can wave. Everyone can wave. I'm not going to stop the meeting, but
Bye.